is KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank.
Hello and welcome into this week's edition of Mizzou That's Who, your podcast for Missouri Athletics here on KC Sports Network. I'm one of your wonderful co-hosts, Tucker Franco, joined as always by Gabe DeArmond and Maggie Johnson. Gabe, how you doing?
Counting down the days. Week from Wednesday, that's 9 days after we're recording this. There's a decent chance Missouri basketball season is completely over. If not, I'm assuming a week from Thursday. So we are 10 days, and we can move on to more positive thoughts.
We can at least try to move on to more positive thoughts, Gabe. Maggie, how are you doing?
Yeah, same. You know, I've still been watching every game because I feel like it's just the right thing to do. I don't know. You know, when you're just like in that, you feel like you need to be there through the highs and lows. Like I'm at that point. I'm not saying anybody needs to make it a priority. I'm not saying that because I feel like that's also not the right thing to say. But I'm just one of those people that I'm like, I'm gonna. If I miss a half, I'm not saying I like go back and watch it. I DVR it, but I'm not saying I go back and watch it. But yeah, I'm just trying to, do the right thing.
So I preface this by saying that I understand that my job depends on people caring, and I'm glad people care. But I have gotten text messages during games from a few friends in the last month, angry about the way a game's going, complaining about something else. And my response is always the same. I know why I'm watching, but why are you watching? Well, I mean, and yeah. I understand. I think for a lot of people, it's just what they do. But like, I don't blame anybody for being a fair weather fan because sports is supposed to be fun.
Yeah.
And watching this team right now isn't fun. Like, I've actually been really impressed the last couple home games that I've gone to. And I'll admit, even I haven't gone to some home games, which is not normal. I went to most every home game of the Kim Anderson era. But the arena has been far more full and far more loud than you would expect for the way this season is going. And again, that's great if there are people that are still bought in and invested. It's really, I know it surprises me that more people don't just check out and say, you know what, I'm going to come back when this is more fun for me.
Yeah, I'm going to come back when that top class gets in there, right? No, sorry, Maggie, cut you off.
No, you're fine. I feel like in past years, I've even been hard on fans, and I've been like, if you live in Columbia, there's no reason for you not to be there. I have not even been like that this year. I don't feel like I can say that to people because I understand 100% why they're not there. There's nothing, you know how the story is going to end. I know you said that on Power Mizzou, Gabe, that I don't have faith. And I watched the Ole Miss game the other day, and I think it was one of their better games, to be honest with you. I think they shot, 54% from the field. They didn't shoot that well from three, but they played pretty well, or they shot pretty well. Otherwise, at least in the second half, they did. They didn't play very well in the first half, but they had a good game plan towards the end of the game to get back in it. But I just never had real faith that they were going to win that game. Yeah. I knew that they were probably going to miss some free throws at the end of it. And that's exactly what happened. Aiden Shaw missed 2 free throws. They made Jesus made a dumb foul at half court, and it was just ended the way we knew it was probably going to end.
And that's the thing. If you just kind of accept it and you say, hey, it's my team and I'm watching, that's cool. I mean, look, I watched a ton of really bad Royals baseball between 1985 and 2014 because it was what I did in the summer. I grew up a Royals fan, so I turned the games on, and it was just kind of habit. And then I hit a point where I said, well, why? Nobody's making me do this. I know how it's going to go. And I feel like it's been about 2 months. I've been saying, look, if you go in with expectations that one of these basketball games is going to turn out differently than the previous now 16 have, that's really kind of on you at this point. Like I go in hoping, absolutely, you go in hoping they can win every single game, and they're doing their best. They're trying to win every single game. But if you go in expecting anything different than what you have now seen 16 straight times, and it's either 20 out of 21 or 21 out of 22. I can't remember which one. But then, like, I don't know. And I mean, that's kind of, I just don't understand at this point letting it make you angry, to be quite honest. It doesn't make sense to me.
And that's a really good point, because it's one of those things, too. I know earlier in the season, and hasn't really changed a whole lot, we're like, okay, what happened in this game? We'll go back and watch the other 8 games, 6 games, 4 games. You could perfectly point that out. And so it's almost like the definition of, insanity, doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. You're going to drive yourself insane doing that. And Gabe, I thought you had a really good stat. Not only has it been a bad season for Missouri men's basketball, Missouri women's basketball also not doing very well. 27 straight losses in the conference for both the basketball teams. It's been a dreadful basketball season, a dreadful, I would say, winter sports season, but wrestling and gymnastics is kind of salvaging it a little bit. So it's been not a very good basketball season, like historically, for the Tigers.
Yeah, they are, let's see, they've got a combined 19 wins. The fewest they've ever combined for since women's basketball became an NCAA-sanctioned sport is 24. So, I mean, the men have 3 games left. The women have 1, guaranteed. So they need to win all of those, and then they need to each win 1 more to make sure that it is not legitimately, numerically, the worst basketball season in Missouri history, which is fairly depressing, I guess.
Well, and it stinks because, there's players that are playing for other women's teams that used to play for Mizzou that are studs. You have Blackwell that plays for Baylor that is a pretty good player. You have the guard that up and plays for Michigan. That's a pretty good player. I don't think Michigan's women are that great. I don't know if they're ranked or not, but she's a pretty good player. So you have these players that transferred out that if they all played for Mizzou, I don't think Mizzou's women would be that terrible. So, it's just things like that. I don't think that many players that have transferred out of Mizzou would make that big of a difference at this point. But the ones that have transferred out of the women's team, I think, would probably make a pretty big difference. So you just see things like that, and it's pretty tough to see.
Missouri has Auburn and LSU left. The men do. And I know, Gabe, when we had started talking about the conference schedule for the Tigers, we said, okay, if they lose these 3, it's possible that they don't win a game the rest of the season. Did you ever think that was actually going to happen?
100%. After Vanderbilt, I expected them to go 0-18. That put them 0-9, and they just looked like a team that didn't know how to win. And Ken Pomeroy's newsletter today, this is how historic this season is. Ken Pomeroy is writing about an 8-21 team. Like, he's normally talking about bubble teams at this point in time.
Yeah.
But he pointed out that, like, the numbers say this should not be an 8-21 team, right? And I need to make people, I've fought this fight like every day for the last week on our message. When I'm saying they have been unlucky, that does not mean they are good. That does not mean I just think, well, it's a tournament team that just had really bad. No, that means they are awful. And on top of it, they are also unlucky.
Yes.
Pomeroy basically wrote that, like, of teams that have gone winless in conference, they have like the second best metrics of any team that's ever managed to do that. So what that tells you is they shouldn't have been able to manage to do that. But the reason they've done it is because when they played relatively well, Tennessee, Kansas, they've been playing a team that was too good for them to beat even on their best day. When they've played a team that's bad, they've matched that team by playing poorly. And like, I go into every football season and when you break down the schedule, I say, give me the toughest games on the road. Give me Georgia, Bama, LSU. Give me games like that on the road, because they're probably beating you no matter where you play. Give me the Kentuckys, the South Carolinas, the Ole Misses. Give me those games at home, because if that gives me a little edge, cool, I'll go take my loss in Tuscaloosa. but I want to maximize my chances to win. And so the equivalent here is play like crap against the good teams. Who cares if Tennessee beats you by 40? Because Tennessee, you can play well and Tennessee's going to beat you by 9. Because Dalton Connect's just going to wake up and go, I'm so much better than any of you guys. I'm just going to score 15 points here real quick and go sit down on the bench. But if you actually play well against Ole Miss, against Texas A&M, against Vandy, against Arkansas, you pick up 4 or 5 wins, and we aren't having these conversations we're having. And again, nobody is trying to paint this season as anything but an abject disaster and failure. It's been awful. It's potentially the worst season in the history of Missouri basketball. No one is trying to paint it as any different.
Yeah.
If you just kept one guy healthy or made 2 plays in 2 games, 2-16 still sucks real bad. But it's not historical, right? We're not talking about do we fire this guy that just won 25 games and made the tournament? And by the way, some people are talking about that. It's not a discussion we're having because it's not going to.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I saw Ken Pom said Missouri will be the highest ranked winless team for as long as he has rating for. And I'm not sure how long he has ratings for, but I'm pretty sure he's been doing this for quite a
At least
while.
20 years. I know that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I mean, like he said too, he's like, we beat Minnesota, we beat Pitt, both true road games. Those aren't tournament games. Those are true road wins. So, I mean, I'm not trying to be a sunshine pumper. I don't think any of us are trying to be sunshine pumpers here, but we're trying to explain something that's been kind of inexplicable. Why are we?
It really is.
You
can't figure out why this team's 0-16.
No, because we should have at least 3 or 4 wins. I'm not trying to say that we should have 8 wins. I'm not trying to say we should have 10 wins, but I think that we should have 3, 4, maybe even 5 wins. And you can't explain really why until Ken Pom Ken Pom can't even really explain, and he's putting this art.
Right. I mean, you should luck into one.
Yeah.
One day you roll in and the other team shoots 28%, and that happened in College Station. And Missouri was worse, right? And then one day you walk in and the team has no interest in playing defense, and that happens. And Missouri matches it by playing even worse defense. They're ranked 75 spots above Vandy, and they lost to Vandy, and it wasn't that close in the last 3 or 4 minutes. It's a team that has its best days on the worst day to have your best days, and its worst days on the worst day to have its worst days.
Right, but Ole Miss had to shoot 50%. On the day we shoot 50% or 54% from the field, Ole Miss shoots 50%. Right. So it's why can't Ole Miss just shoot a normal, maybe 43% or something, and we win that game? It's just one of those
because Missouri can't play defense without.
Our perimeter defense is.
Speaking of which, have you guys seen that Dennis Gates is a meme now?
Hadn't he always been?
Show that Dennis Gates dropped the F-bomb?
No, we haven't, because I was out at the Combine. We didn't have a show last week. Right. We're gonna have a lot of stuff to talk about with the Combine and spring ball and everything like that. But I
was just randomly scrolling through Instagram this morning, and I saw a thing that was me and my buddies in sports gambling. It's just the Dennis Gates clip of we suck at it. We're effing terrible. Yeah. It applies to many things, including, unfortunately, his basketball. It was the most casual F-bomb I've ever seen.
Yeah, and
they clearly playing.
He didn't he say hey, don't censor this. I want you.
He said I want you to run that. So we did. I don't know about anybody else. I don't think network TV can get away with it still.
But they left half, not you guys obviously, but the actual meme, actual quote left the part out that he was talking about, because he was talking about.
It's way more fun that way, though.
Yeah, I know.
It did lack context, but the clip of him saying we're bad at it, and
but also if you take the context away, it's still accurate. He's right there.
Oh, yeah,
terrible.
Yeah. We are terrible. In any way you look at it, almost every aspect of basketball, we're pretty terrible.
The Missouri basketball channel in the Discord that we have on KC Sports Network has been pretty inactive. I think the Mizzou football one has been a little bit more active than the Mizzou basketball one has been. But I tell you what, when Dennis Gates dropped that F-bomb, it was the most active I've seen that Discord channel in quite some time.
Like, if I remember anything about this season, that's what I'll remember. Like, the only thing I really remember from Kim Anderson's career is telling everybody to shove it up their effing asses on the way off the court in Nashville. I don't remember anything else that happened for those 3 years, but I remember that.
Probably good. Yeah. You don't remember that.
I also remember the Kevin Puryear 3 sets of Titanic music, actually, so I remember 2 things. Same game.
That was good. That was good stuff. The internet, undefeated usually. They usually don't miss when it comes to memeing stuff like that, but I'm glad to see Dennis is getting his proper meme respect in the meme community with that clip.
Well, I just think it's good that, like, he does have human emotions,
right?
You know, and because I think because of his demeanor, people think he's just fine with this season. There is no way Dennis is fine with this season. Like, I mean, there was a play. I honestly don't even remember what play it was, but during the Ole Miss game, in the middle of the comeback, something happened, and I just like dropped my head on the table on press row because what else do you do? And Drew King was sitting next to me. He goes, Dennis just did the same exact thing. He's just staring at the floor with his head in his hands. Like, what else do you do, man? I mean, you can let it make you mad and you can rant and rave, but it just doesn't seem very healthy to me at this point. I mean, if you're going to be bad, I don't know, just be bad all the way. Like, no, it's like Tin Cup, right? Nobody remembers who finished second the U.S. Open, but everybody remembers your 12, Roy. Yeah. I'll remember 0-18. I would forget 3-15.
Well, and I think that's something that Ken Pom was talking about too. And a lot of people, I think, are talking about how the players don't care and stuff. And Ken Pom said, these players absolutely care. You can tell in every single game that they play that they're still fighting. They're fighting in these comebacks. And I mean, watch Shawnee's play and tell me that he is not fighting in games.
If you're down 21 in the second half at home and you make it a 1-point game, look, that's not a team that quit. Again, I go back and forth because, again, effort is the bare minimum, right? You are getting a scholarship. Like Gates has said a couple times, we put on jerseys, we chose this. You're expected to try. But there's a lot of teams in Missouri situations that don't try. And who knows? Like Auburn, I actually think Auburn could be the one where they come out and they're down 15-2 off the jump. And it's just like it's never close because Auburn's that good. It's a really bad matchup for Missouri. All that. But like, I hesitate to say they deserve credit because, like, you shouldn't be down 21 against Ole Miss to begin with, right? But the fact that they are playing this hard for him at least tells me, like, the only thing you can't say about this team is that he's lost the locker. He clearly has not lost the locker.
I think players still really like him. I think that he's still, and I think that's why you still see recruits tweeting about how they're excited to be at Mizzou. I mean, you still see Peyton Marshall tweeting about how he's excited to be at Mizzou. I don't think that he's lost recruits in all of this. I think players still really want to play for him. And I think a lot of it has to do with his character. I mean, you saw the tweet about how after that hard loss, he was visiting Coach Nutt at the hospital for 3 hours, like immediately after. I think and I know people will joke and laugh because everyone always talks about how good of a man Kim Anderson was. And I know that because my family knows him and I'm from Sedalia and he's from Sedalia. And like everyone talks about how good of a person he is as well. But like, I do think that plays a role in the person that you want to play for. And I think if you give him time to bring in the people that he wants to play for, I think that Konzo and Kim Anderson never had a recruiting class like Dennis has lined up.
Konzo had one.
Okay. Yeah, he did.
And he turned it into an NCAA tournament despite the best player doing whatever that was.
Yeah. And the best player got hurt on like the first game.
But like all that stuff only matters for another 8 months. Like he's got to win games next year. He just does.
Has to.
And it like it's the ultimate scoreboard business. And it doesn't matter how hard you try or how good a guy you are if you're not winning games.
Right.
You know, and I don't disagree with anything you're saying at all. I like Dennis. He seems like a good human being to me in my experiences with him. But you know, and he knows too. Like they all know in this business, like that ain't gonna save a job.
Right.
I think he gets, with the season he had in his first season, despite how absolutely dreadful this season has been, I think with what he has coming in, I don't even know why people would question that he has a third season on deck. I don't even know why that's even
Right.
It's more likely to me that they're really bad next year and he still comes back than if he gets fired. They owe him at the end of next season $17.2 million if they fire him.
Wow.
I don't know who's writing that check, guys. There aren't a lot of Missouri donors that can write that check, you know, or are willing to. So I just, and again, I don't want to go too far down this road because every game we either have to extend somebody or we have to fire him. There's no in between.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. He had a pretty good season and a really awful one. So let's see what the third one's like, and then we can start having these conversations. You know, it's the same thing that we were talking about Drink in August.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if he'd had another 500 season, he might have gotten fired. Well, guess what? He didn't. He went 11-2, and he can just walk around flipping the double bird to everybody in Columbia because he did it. Good for him. It saved his job. I said a couple days ago he can go 4-8 next year, and you will not one time see me question whether Missouri should fire him.
Yeah.
He's earned that. Now, I'm not dumb enough to think that people won't be talking about firing him if he goes 4-8, but, you know.
Yeah. Well, any final thoughts on Missouri basketball before we move on, before we turn the page?
Here's the prediction I have made. I know it's going to happen. They're going to lose both games this week. They're going to finish 0-18.
Yeah.
And then they're going to go to what I affectionately call the most depressing night in all of sports, Wednesday at the SEC tournament. And they're going to beat Georgia or Arkansas in that Wednesday night game. Because they're going to make Drew King stay one more night in Nashville, and they're going to make me pay for it. That's where we're at.
It's only fitting, right?
It would be the perfect karmic end to this season, right?
It would.
The way it's set up right now, based on the bracket that I saw, is, gosh, I hate freaking Mizzou Hope right now. But it is
Don't
set up.
say it's the perfect bracket for an 0-18 team. There's not a perfect bracket.
What it is?
The only way it can be a perfect bracket. I'm not sure this team would win the Atlantic Sun tournament. There isn't a perfect bracket.
It's the ideal bracket for an 0-18 team on a 14th seed.
It's the ideal bracket to make it to Thursday.
Okay, that's fair.
That's all you can hope for, I guess. What about the Horizon League? Can they win the Horizon League?
I don't like it. I don't know. I couldn't even tell you who's leading like the ACC or the Big. Well, I know who's leading the Big 12, but I couldn't tell you who's leading the ACC.
North Carolina's got to be leading the ACC.
Or the Pac.
They did just beat Duke.
It's got to be Arizona and North Carolina. It's got to be those two teams. Because nobody else in the Pac-12 is good.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, let's take a break. When we get back, we'll talk about some Mizzou guys at the Combine, some spring ball notes, and of course, I got to tell you guys about Home Field Apparel, rocking the Mizzou Raw t-shirt. Got on right now. Maggie's got, that's the nice crew neck, isn't it?
No, this is from like a couple of seasons ago. But
yeah, that was one of the first drops. It's a good one. From homefieldapparel.com. Go check them out. 150 plus college designs if you got a buddy or anyone in your life that likes other schools besides Missouri. I find that highly unlikely that you do. But make sure to go check that out. Use code KCTSN23 at checkout for 15% off your first order. We will be back with more coming up right after this.
We appreciate you supporting KC Sports Network by listening to our podcast. You have helped us become the highest-ranked Chiefs podcast network in 2022 and 2023. And don't forget about our daily Substack newsletter, the best written analysis you can find on the Chiefs straight to your inbox every day. KCSN.substack.com.
Missouri had a record number participants at the NFL scouting combine this last week in Indianapolis. And what I thought was really interesting, I kind of want to just like all those guys at the podium are kind of asked about the same questions. Like it's all the same scrums, and it's people saying, "Have you met with the Bucks? Have you met with the Cowboys?" And it's just them saying yes or no to those things. But out of the real questions they were asked, they're all kind of asked similar questions. And what I noticed, Tyron Hopper was asked this. I think Javon Foster was as well. They asked about what was their favorite memory, their favorite game that they played. And all of those guys pointed at the K-State game. They all said, hey, beating them at home, having the fans rush the field, that experience was the best feeling. I thought that was really interesting. I mean, they play in the SEC, they play a lot of big games, but that one right there was the one that they're like, yeah, that's what I'll always remember going into the NFL.
Well, I think, first of all, it's a home game, so that helps. Second, I mean, had they beat Georgia, maybe that's a different answer. But also, like, I think the players feel the same way we felt. I don't think that season happens without that.
Yeah.
You know, they lose that game. I think the rest of the year goes a little bit different.
I think there's something to be said about a revenge game, too. I think, they went to, all of them were on the team last year, and they went to K-State and got annihilated. They got embarrassed, to be honest with you. And, regardless of how the game went down, and, there was the rain delay, and then, they put up the billboard and did all of this stuff. And, they got chirped. They got chirped for a year, and it wasn't fun. I know Luther Burden got chirped about how many yards he had in that game. And then he had a great game this year, but I'm sure that wasn't enjoyable. And so I'm sure a little bit of revenge played a role in their answer as well.
I think the real MVP of the combine was Missouri's media prep people. 8 Missouri guys, they all got through without saying something like they didn't believe planets existed or that electrical wires are bird charging stations.
Oh, no.
There's some wild stuff out there.
The Texas Tech education kind of showed through a little bit with the old "don't believe in space" one. Tip Ryman doesn't. He went to Illinois, so I guess that makes sense why he doesn't think birds are real. Look, there's some wild stuff going on out there, but you're right. I think that's a big hat tip to the media department, having those guys ready to go. One of my favorite guys that we had the opportunity to talk to is Darius Robinson. I mean, that guy he's great. He had a really great soundbite for Chiefs fans out there too. I know there's been a lot of buzz with him. He had a really great Senior Bowl, measured really well. Maybe didn't run as quick as everybody maybe wanted him to, but like as a defensive end, interior guy hybrid, you don't need him running a 4.6 to play at that position at the next level. Really impressed with him.
Yeah, he's been one of the more fun guys to cover. Like I've said this, he actually knows who the people in the media are. And I can have a conversation with you that's not just, hey, say words that I need to write, which is like, it's more and more rare. So appreciate it when we get guys like that. And I'll be interested. I'm still not sure if I buy the first round talk. I hope it happens. Don't get me wrong. I'd love to see that kid go in the first round. I'd love to see him be invited to the draft in his hometown. Hey, if the Lions took him, that'd be awesome. It'd be a really cool story. But I don't know. We're at the point in time where you don't believe anything you hear, right? And there's guys, it happens every single year with every fan base. I can't believe this guy went lower. Well, there's some dude from like East New Mexico Technical College out there that 32 NFL GMs know about that I have no idea exists, right? There's a lot of players out there, and just getting drafted is huge. Just because maybe you don't go in the first 27, 32 picks, whatever, doesn't preclude you from having an NFL career.
Yeah, it doesn't matter at all. Yeah,
It matters a little.
Your option.
Where did Brock Purdy go? I mean, where did Tom Brady go? I mean, I'm not saying that everybody is going to be a Brock Purdy or a Tom Brady, but come on, like it doesn't. It's not like the end all be all to where your career is necessarily going to end up. And it's like you said, whenever you watch Monday Night Football or Thursday Night Football and the players come on and they say where they went to school, sometimes I see places and I'm like, what? Like, how did you end up here? And it is cool. It really is cool. So I appreciate that. And like you said, Tucker, on Darius Robinson's 40-yard dash, like when is he running 40 yards?
Yeah.
The only he's running 40 yards, something went wrong.
I think the only thing that matters is really that first 10. And I think he had a pretty good first 10. Yeah. So I'm honestly not that worried about it.
Either that or Bob Sutton was his defensive coordinator, had him covering Rob Gronkowski 45 yards downfield. Not that scarred me for life in any way. Yeah. But Tucker, you were there. Would you agree that the guy that probably had the best week up there was Jalen Carlisle?
Yeah, so we got to be up close with JC at the Shrine Bowl as well. And I can remember at the Shrine Bowl just being wildly impressed with, number one, how big he is. Like, he's huge for a safety. Wouldn't be surprised if he gets moved down to linebacker at the next level because he is just that big. He ran a little bit faster than I thought he was going to. So, I mean, he is so fluid. He just looks like, let me see if I can phrase it. So, if you watch a bunch of different like prospects, right, some guys just move differently than other guys at their position. I think in the position groups, the position group drills, especially with JC, he moved different. Like, and you can tell he's a little bit more fluid, a guy that changed his direction really well. I've been really impressed with him in this draft process, even just like talking with him and everything, his mindset going into it and all that. But man, he's an athlete. He's a big dude, and I think a lot of people are going to be really. I think he's going to impress a lot of people at the next level.
And I think the question that Missouri fans have had about him is coverage, ball skills, maybe.
Yeah.
But again, if you're a 4-3 outside linebacker, it goes away a little bit. I mean, you can cover a tight end, you can cover a guy out of the backfield. Maybe if he's not, 40 yards downfield, maybe he's actually, But I think more and more teams that, hey, maybe he's a linebacker in your sub packages, but maybe if a safety gets hurt, he can do that, right? I mean, he has more than one way potentially to make a team. I went into last week thinking he's probably undrafted, and you run 4.5 at 2.27. I'm not sure you're going undrafted.
That's what I was about to ask. I was wondering where he was projected, so.
It's going to be interesting, too. I believe the Pro Day is the 16th, right? Is it the same day as the spring game?
Pro Day
16th? No,
Pro Day is like the 22nd.
22nd, sorry. I got those mixed up. That's when I said the 16th, I was like, wait, that's when the spring game is. And I was like, there's no shot that those are on the same day. I think it's going to be really interesting, too, a lot of those guys, how they run at their Pro Day as well. And I think that's the benefit of like running at the combine, right? And doing these things at the combine and also doing them at your Pro Day. Maybe if you don't run a good 40, I'm not saying JC ran a great 40. If you don't run a good 40, you can do it again at your Pro Day.
I think Pro Day has been for Ennis. Yeah. Yes. He may not have been 100% healthy, but whatever. I mean, which is kind of the knock on him at this point, right? Is he hasn't been healthy a lot, but I don't know that, everybody has had Ennis as a first-round pick, and Chris Abrams-Drain is like a fourth-round pick. I mean,
yeah, the
measurables aren't that different. I think there was like 5 pounds difference in the weight. AD ran faster, and he's been, and it's not a one or the other thing. It'd be great for Missouri if they're both first-day picks, But I think Ennis needs to have a good day on.
I agree.
If he's going to go where he's going to get drafted no matter what, but he's going to go where people have talked about.
So I've been keeping track of all the measurements from All-Star games into Combine, got a whole list updated. Chris Abrams-Drain put on 5 pounds since the Senior Bowl.
So did I. Why is that impressive?
Well, it is 5
I can't run a 4.51, but
Yeah. I think the biggest knock on both Ennis and KAD is their size, right? They're a little bit smaller guys, and he can't probably change his height a whole lot. Probably could, but not conventionally, I should say. But I think that him adding on that weight was an interesting thing for me when I saw he gained 5 pounds since he weighed in. Like, that wasn't that long ago. It was like a month ago. At most. So I was kind of impressed by that, and running what he did with 5 more extra pounds on him was pretty impressive. But there's One of my favorite questions that all these prospects got asked is like, who's next at Mizzou? Who are we going to be talking about next? Obviously,
we all know that.
Everyone said, well, Luther Burden. That was the first name out of everybody's mouth. But two guys that came up almost every time were Johnny Walker and Dalen Carnell. Two guys in this defense that are going to be assuming large leadership roles as they face kind of a bigger turnover on the defensive side of the ball than they do the offensive side of the ball. I believe they have 8 starters back on the offensive side of the ball. They're going to be looking for a little bit more production on the defensive side of the ball, Gabe. We got a week of practice, spring practice in the books. What have you seen out there?
Not much. The strats well. They do the individual position drills very nicely. Although, guys, one of the things I appreciate about Drinkwitz is he doesn't overdo what spring football is. It's, he's not putting out a depth chart. Nobody's winning or losing a position battle. I mean, you can see a few things. One of the guys that, looks just like you really use the offseason the right way is Jordan Harris, the tight end. I mean, he looks like he has an NFL football player body. He looks the part. There's a cornerback, Shamar McNeil. He redshirted last year, but man, he's big. He's a guy that I think can see some playing time. The Caden Green's playing left tackle right now, which I think they're going to do. Cameron Johnson played a little bit of both guard spots because they got to replace Foster and Delgado. So it'll be interesting to see where he lines up and who takes the other guard spot. But again, we're not going to know that for 5 more months.
Could be interesting to see. Are they going to do anything cool for sometimes they don't necessarily do straight up black and gold, right? In terms of teams, or do they do anything like drafting?
I was told they're planning to have a draft and a real football game for the spring game. Now that can change if it's 27 degrees and raining sideways. That can change. I know a couple years ago, Drinkwitz just got to the spring game and said, "We got too many guys hurt. Can't do this." So that can change it. I would, if I was in charge, I would tell Brady Cook today he's not allowed to play in the spring football game.
Yeah.
We can't have you trip over an untied shoelace, and you are going to sit and call plays. You're going to sit with Kirby Morgan in the spring game.
I mean, there's really no reason to risk it. We don't have anybody else that can play, and he's gotten hurt before, so.
And then it also would give the added benefit of fans that will walk out of the spring game or going, well, we're never going to complete past this year. And you kind of downplay expectations a little bit, which I don't think would be the worst thing over the summer for Missouri to do.
Yeah. Who are their quarterbacks right now?
After Brady, it is Aiden Glover, a true freshman.
That's right.
Tommy Locke and Harold Blood, who is a transfer from, I believe, Southern University. His younger brother is a wide receiver, but yes, he's a graduate transfer walk-on. They will add some cert in the transfer.
But it doesn't open till April 17th, correct? Sometime around then?
After spring ball, I'm pretty sure.
I want to say it's May 1st, but you might be right. Okay. I feel like it's May 1st for football, but there are some guys out there that are still in it. Grad transfers can transfer at any time. So there are certain situations that can help them.
I remember we were going to do a podcast about a whole 45 minutes about Sam Horn's elbow. We were really scheduled to do one, and then the AD news came down. So we didn't get to talk about the ramifications of Sam Horn having Tommy John and how fast you can come back from that, and if you'd be able to throw a football. We didn't get to talk about all of that. But that was low-key. Quarterback already going into the season was like, yeah, you're probably going to need to add somebody else before Sam Horn got hurt. And now I was looking at that, and I was like, hey. And you said Brady Cook, and I was like, who's going to be throwing the football? Because I don't know off the top of my head who that would be. Yeah, that's an interesting position.
The biggest ramification of Sam Horn's elbow injury might be Missouri played 2 baseball games this weekend in which 69 runs were scored.
I saw that. That's it.
They won 28-10 and then got beat 16-15.
Was it really windy there too? Because it was windy in Kansas City.
Super windy.
Okay.
But Missouri scored 28 runs on Saturday on, I think they had 16 hits. They had 7 guys get hit by pitches in the same game. Not sure how that game finished without multiple brawls, but...
And that's against non-SEC opponents.
Bad product, man.
Yeah.
I'm not excited about playing against teams that have been winning national championships for the past 10 years or however. I don't know how many in a row they won, but it's not going to be fun.
I honestly don't even remember who they played this weekend, but it was not anybody I knew anything about.
Was that like Northern Kentucky or?
Yes, Northern Kentucky.
Yeah.
The Norse.
The Norse. Yeah, I was going to say. You see them pop up every now and again in your March Madness bracket.
Kentucky has a lot of directional schools, man. There's an Eastern Kentucky, a Northern Kentucky, and a Western Kentucky. There should be a Southern Kentucky. They could be the Colonels.
That is sick.
Colonel Sanders trot around.
Is Austin Peay in Kentucky?
No, that's in Illinois. Murray State's in Kentucky.
That's right. Austin Peay's the governor, so that's a sick name.
Let's go, Pete.
Let's go, Pete. There's a lot.
I feel like this is the sure sign we've got to be getting toward the end.
Yeah. There's a lot of different ways you can go with Austin Peay's little motto that they got going there. But any final thoughts on Missouri football heading into draft time, spring ball before we wrap this up?
No.
Not too much about football. Hopefully wrestling can get together before the Big 12 tournament coming up.
National championship at Kansas City.
Yeah.
I'm just waiting when we do a show in a week or 2 weeks to ask Maggie if she still believes that Missouri's bracket was perfect.
Perfect.
So they're perfect. So
I said ideal.
Perfect.
I said ideal as my second word.
Semantics. All right. That's going to do it for this edition of Mizzou That's Who. We appreciate you guys listening all the way to the end of the podcast. If you did, wow, shout out to you. We really do appreciate you. But we'll be back soon with another episode. So until then, for Gabe DeArmond and Maggie Johnson, I'm Tucker Franklin. We'll talk to you guys soon.